Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this Hangout tonight. My name is Nicole Lentini. I'm one of the admission counselors at Champlain College, and I'm very excited to have a panel of current students for you tonight who are going to talk all about internships that they've had at Champlain and are currently doing at Champlain. We encourage you to send questions our way. If you follow us on Twitter, you can tweet questions our way during this broadcast. It's at Champlain SA. We've also sent out a form that you can submit questions if you'd prefer that too. Otherwise, hopefully you're watching this in the archive. As always, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions you have. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Lisa, and then she'll introduce you to everybody else there tonight.
Hello, so my name is Lisa. I am currently a senior admissions intern here at Champlain. I'm also a senior business administration student. So tonight we have a Google Hangout for you guys. We're going to talk all about internships. So I know it's kind of a broad term, but there's a lot of different types of internships. Every different major has a different structure for their internship. So we're going to kind of go over the ins and outs of it. So you know what to expect and what you could be facing, whether you're already a student at Champlain or whether you're a prospective student at Champlain. So we're going to go around the room and start by introducing ourselves. We'll start, I guess, this side and go around this way. So Chloe, if you want to start us off.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Chloe. I'm a senior public relations major with a specialization in marketing. And in the past, I've had about 4 internships, and I started when I was a sophomore, which we'll touch on more later.
My name is Katie. I'm a senior here at Champlain as well. I'm a marketing and advertising major with a minor in event management. I've only done 1 internship so far here at Champlain, and that was also my sophomore year.
My name's Dan. I'm also a senior graphic design and digital media major. I've had 2 internships, and I'm about to have my 3rd on campus next semester.
Hi, my name is Caitlin, and I'm also a senior, and I'm in the social work program. I've had 3 internships during my time at Champlain, also starting sophomore year.
Okay, great. So as you kind of can hear through that, everyone except Katie and I are both in the Stiller School of Business, and then Chloe and Dan are both in the Communication and Creative Media, and then Caitlin's in Education and Human Studies. So we're all in different divisions, which means that we're going to be doing totally different things in our internships. So that's why we're here to talk to you guys tonight about all the different parts that are in common between them all and all the things that are different. So just to start off, we'll just talk about a general rundown of what we've experienced in our internships. So where they've been at, kind of what your title as an intern was at that company, maybe what some of your daily tasks were. We'll go around and kind of share that with you before we dive into very specific details about internships. So I guess we'll continue to start at this side. It works. So Chloe.
Yeah. So tonight I'll speak about the internship that I've had the longest, which is the one that I started in when I was a sophomore, and it's for a small startup company called Mama Va, and we create pods to help women who are nursing have accommodations while they're on the go and out and about doing errands. And as a sophomore, I had a lot of creative freedom at this internship because it was a startup. It also is important to include that it was paid, which is not how some of my other internships were set up, but it was really nice because it allowed for me to have more time to devote to that internship. It allowed for me to have more creative freedom with my intern tasks and just really feel like I was a part of the business. And I've been with them for 2 years, and I've stayed on the whole time because you'll kind of find that you get really in touch and attached to your internships, and you are passionate about what it is that you do if you're in the right setting. And I've certainly been in the right setting with that internship, and I've really enjoyed it, and I've done things from social media, marketing, PR, a little bit of everything since they are a startup. So
the internship I did was also for a small local company. I did mine for a nonprofit animal advocacy group in Vermont. It's called Green Mountain Animal Defenders. And my position there was event marketing and public relations intern. So I actually did an intern that wasn't directly related, an internship that wasn't directly related to my major. Which I think actually helped me a lot. So I got to see an event go from start to finish, which was the big thing that I took away from that. And I also got to do some small business administration work at their home office, and I got to do my first PR work. I got to look into that world a little bit. So I really did a bunch of little things in marketing that kind of formed the direction I wanted to go in further.
So the internship that I did was actually over the summer, and it was in New York City, and I was working in a publishing company in the design aspect of the firm. So I was a design intern at the time, and it was really interesting for me to see what it was like to be working in a design like kind of section of a firm that has marketing and has all of these different brands. So learning how to save things properly, learning how to output things properly, learning what it's like to design in the business where you go to an art director and they kind of push it back to you and they give you those critiques was really something that I could never experience in a classroom. So that was a huge internship, and it was a huge learning experience for me.
Awesome. So as a social worker, you get to be exposed to lots of different populations. So throughout my time at Champlain, I've really decided to hone in on specific groups and specific populations and finding my niche and my passion working with children. So after graduation and further down the line, I hope to be an elementary school social worker, and that's what my internship is right now. So every day I go to a local elementary school and I work with the behavior coach, and I currently work within the first grade within 4 different classrooms in the first grade. And a lot of those students come from refugee populations. We have some students who come from a substance abuse background. So it's working with multiple different populations and kind of getting a sense of what a community is like within just the children that are in the school. And the previous 2 internships that I've done were also in the school setting as well.
Yeah, and I'm also currently in this position in admissions. A lot of people don't know that there's internships within departments on campus as well. Usually internships, you're like, oh, I have to go learn about these companies and seek them out in Burlington, but there's actually a lot of internship opportunities right on campus, which is really great because they're super understanding of, oh, you're a student, and they know the academic calendar, they know how campus works, they know when events are happening because their departments on campus do. So sometimes it's nice to kind of stay in brand as well. So I have worked in admissions since I stepped foot on Champlain campus, and I am a senior admissions intern right now. So my main duties are interviewing students. So prospective students can have an informational interview along with their application. It's not required, but it's just kind of a casual chat. So you can learn more about Champlain. We can tell you more about Champlain. If you're torn between a couple majors, we can get really specific and talk about what might be the best fit for you, when you want to apply, early decision, regular decision, stuff like that. So that's always an option if you are a prospective student out there. We do offer those interviews. But then I also manage a small group of volunteer students we have on campus called the SET team. So these are primarily first-year students, but we do have some sophomore students as well. They volunteer at open houses, accepted students days. They sit on some of our panels. They walk people to portfolio reviews. They're really, really helpful, awesome volunteer group. And I help to kind of manage all their communication, facilitate their meetings, make sure they are where they need to be when they are volunteering for us. So if you're a current student, we also have that opportunity here in admissions, but those are kind of my main duties here. So yeah, so you got a kind of general gist of what we've all experienced at some of our internships. A lot of us can't talk about every single one that we've had because we'd be here for hours. So we're just kind of possibly summarizing on some of the topics. So feel free to tweet questions if you're out there, if you want to know any more information. But just to kind of get into more of the specifics. So internships, sometimes they're going to be for credit for a class. Like I'm in an internship class right now, and we have to be having an internship while we're in the course. I know a lot of business majors take those classes, and it's not across the board required for every division, but most divisions do have internship classes tied to them. But then sometimes you just want to get an internship, and sometimes they're going to be paid and sometimes they're not going to be paid. So it has a lot to do with how much time do you have in the week to give up to an internship when you also need to be having a part-time job that you work at. So if anyone wants to kind of touch on the choices they have to make when it comes to, is this a paid internship? Is it not, in the commitments that go along with that?
I can touch upon that because I've had a few different internships. Mama Va, as I said earlier, is paid, but I've had the other 3 of which are not paid. And in the past, I've had to, like Lisa said, kind of juggle whether or not I have the time and ability to devote myself to that commitment while not earning an income, or like figuring out my time between that and my part-time job. So I've been lucky enough where Champlain has been so supportive, and they've had great classes that correspond with having an internship. So right now, as we all said, we're in our senior year, and for public relations, your capstone, you have to have an internship. So I have an unpaid internship, but because of my flexibility with my scheduling and setting up my classes, I can still have Mama Va and have that be paid. But in the past, I've also I've sought out an internship, and I thought it would be paid, and it turned out that it wasn't. And I had to do some finagling and work with my advisor and figure out what worked best for me. And she took it upon herself to work with me on the side so I could earn credit and still have that internship while still allowing myself enough personal time to feel like I had a nice balance between work, internship, and classes. So it really just depends on what you need as a student, but Champlain has great resources to be able to help you to find that balance and figure out what works best for you.
I could also add something to that. So as part of the EHS division, a lot of our students will have smaller internships, unpaid internships, throughout their first 3 years, as first year sophomores and juniors. And then the curriculum is created in a way to allow for our seniors to really delve into the work and really get in there and devote a lot of time throughout senior year. So as a senior social work major, I have 420 hours required this year that I need to complete in order to graduate. So having that firm number, dividing between the 2 semesters, allows me to plan accordingly, push things in where I need to, and help me kind of allocate my time appropriately, that I can balance, as Chloe was saying, the work, personal life, classes, and a job, as well as your internship.
Yeah, so does anyone have anything to add? So when you're dealing with internships that are paid and unpaid, the work that you're actually doing, does it vary for anyone based on if the internship is paid or not? Like, do you feel like you're doing any less work when you're not paid, versus are you busier at one of those roles than the other roles, or do you think that they're pretty much the same?
Yeah, so far I found that they're pretty much the same, because ultimately you're hired to put in the same amount of effort no matter what it is that you get out of it. And most of the time, the underlying reason why you don't get paid is that you're still earning some sort of credit through a class that you're earning credit from. So you still are receiving something in return. And I certainly put in the same amount of effort in my paid internships and my unpaid internships, because ultimately I want to be there, and we're working cohesively together to further my education.
Yeah, I think that's just a good thing to clarify, because I know a lot of people, they're like, oh, it's an unpaid internship. That's like volunteer work, right? But that's not how it is at all.
Because when you're getting the credit, you have to allocate the time for your schedule.
Yeah, right.
So then it becomes part of your college curriculum.
Right.
So it's not like you have to give up time.
Yeah, and it's a company. So something with internships that maybe is different from a part-time job is a lot of times you're behind the scenes. You're directly affecting how a company is. If you're running the social media, that's a huge part of that company. So maybe you're not paid, but that doesn't make it any less important than if you were to be paid in that position. So that's definitely something to point out for sure. Let's see what's next. So about time commitment. So I know some of us have internships that are kind of what the supervisor will ask you what time you have to give to the internship. And then there's some that say this internship will be this many hours throughout the semester. What have you guys seen for varying amounts of hours per week, per day? How do you schedule your shifts around your time?
So next semester, I'm going to be interning in marketing. And when I was applying, they told me that I have to block out certain days for them. And they prefer longer shifts, and I'm supposed to be working 10 to 15 hours a week. So obviously I don't really 100% know my schedule yet, because I haven't started there. But I know that I have to block out a couple days where I'm going to be sitting down and working there for several hours, so that I can actually get tasks completed when I have to kind of block out that time in the week. But in the past, I've had summer internships where I've worked 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So it kind of just varies as to whether you're doing it during your college semester or you're doing it outside your 4 years on campus.
The internship that I did sophomore year, I did through a class as well. So it was a structured hours per week that you had to meet. I think it was like 8 to 10, because it was a sophomore internship. And that's worked perfectly fine for me with a full class load and a part-time job. And the people were very flexible with working with my schedule. And then the internship that I'm getting next semester that I'm on track to start in January is completely different. It's not for a credit class, it's just for the experience, and they are working with me too with my part-time job and my class schedule to be really flexible with my hours, and it's just all scheduling and working it out. If you really want to be there, they really want to have you there, and you can make it work.
Yeah, a lot of the time they love internship hosts love hosting interns, especially from Champlain College, because it's a fresh face and it's a fresh look at the company. And a lot of times students bring in a lot of ideas that they may not have had. And sometimes it just takes that younger perspective. And especially, like I said, with Champlain students, we have a really good kind of following and a really good base of internships in the area, and Champlain Colleges definitely has a strong reputation. When they see that on your resume or in your cover letter that you're from Champlain College, that really does boost you to the top of their list when you're looking at other people competing, because this is just like a job. It's just like anything. You're not the only one applying for internships, and they're not just going to be handed to you. They're going to be something that you have to go out and get, and you have to sell yourself just like you would for anything else. And Champlain students are definitely really, really prepared for that, I would say, in the past from what I've experienced. So, okay, now as far as settings for internships, I know, so you heard Caitlin, she's actually in the classroom, in the schools. Some of us are in companies, in businesses. So I just want to talk a little bit about the different kinds of settings that you can experience in an internship. So whether you're right in the office, or you have your own desk, your own little cubicle, or maybe you share a room with a bunch of interns, or maybe it's a rotating desk, so whoever's on shift gets to use it, or maybe you're out there in the field actually working on things and you're not in an office at all. So if we can just talk a little bit about what all of us have experienced in that sense.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Clay.
Sorry. I have experienced a little bit of everything. I currently work at a rotating shift desk where I don't see the other interns, but in the past I worked at one large desk where everyone from the company, interns up to the director, all 18 of us sat at the same table and worked really collaboratively and creatively together. And I've also done some remote work, from my bed doing work. So it just depends. It just depends on the type of internship that you have and what they're asking of you.
Like I mentioned, the internship that I did was with a very small nonprofit organization, and they had the founder of the organization worked out of her home for most of it. So they had like a little corner office that I went to one time, but most of my other time was spent in my bed or in like coffee shops doing all my work. And then I would meet up with my mentor and go over things with her, usually like at Starbucks or something like that. And then a lot of my other time was spent out hanging up posters, and I had a lot of meetings with the other interns that were also from Champlain. So we just like met on campus and like went over stuff. Which was great because it really developed my time management skills, but it definitely also gave me insight to what kind of environment I would want to work in the future, and I definitely prefer a more concrete location to get work done in, but it's good insight to learn.
I've had a different experience, kind of like Chloe's, where one internship, my first internship in the city, I had my own cubicle, and then I would have to get up and go to where the designer that I was working under, and sometimes it was in this area and another time it was in another area, so I was kind of tucked away, and then I would have to get up and go and talk to different people. So I did have my own cubicle. And then my other internship, it actually kind of worked out that they were in between hiring people, so for the bulk of the summer I had my own office, and then for the last like 3 weeks I had to like uproot myself and put myself in the conference room, and they like hired a new guy and he like got my office, and I was a little bitter about it. But I was very lucky that I had my own office for like 3/4 the summer, so I couldn't complain.
So with my internships, like I said earlier, I have been in school settings for my 3. So my days kind of consist of sitting in a group circle during morning meeting in a first grade, or sitting next to a student's desk and helping them with their homework. Or sometimes I have a base where my supervisor's desk is, and I can go in there and talk with her and kind of reflect on the day. But my office is kind of the halls of the schools that I'm in. So I get to, which I find to be very lucky, and I love the fact that I get that flexibility within my professional work areas that I get to go into this classroom, or I get to sometimes go into the 4th grade, or sometimes I get to go down to kindergarten, or sometimes I get that one-on-one experience with a student where it's just myself and that student in a conference room playing a game or coloring or having that connection and building that relationship, which is really important, especially working with kids in social work.
Yeah, so for the internship I'm in right now, in admissions, we also have a rotating desk like Chloe mentioned. So the only time I have weekly meetings with all of the other interns. So every Monday we meet with our 2 supervisors and then all of the interns, and we have usually we have a document that we all add to during the week with questions we want to talk about at the Monday meeting, so nothing ever gets overlooked, and it keeps the communication open. I feel like something that's been really beneficial for us is that weekly time that we get to come together like any other group does, usually in a professional setting, and kind of go over what we've experienced in the last week, any interview problems we've had. We get to troubleshoot with each other and say like, oh, I couldn't log into the computer on this, like, have you ever had that problem? Like, what was going on there? And the only time during the week that I see the other interns is kind of when we're switching out. So when I come to the desk, one of them is just finishing up. But I feel like there's totally different experiences as far as what kind of setting you're in. Like Caitlin mentioned, she's in the schools, and then some of us have had cubicles. So it's totally across the board different as far as where you're going to be placed. So yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, I wanted to specifically ask a question of Caitlin. So Caitlin and I this past semester studied abroad at our Dublin, Ireland campus. And then for all the EHS majors that were in Dublin, they had a placement. So Champlain Dublin placed them in some kind of school or organization within Ireland, and they traveled every week and did days at their placements, and then they had classes alongside them at Champlain Dublin where they'd come in and kind of debrief on what they've had in their internships and kind of do what I just mentioned that I do with the other interns, kind of troubleshoot, share stories. If you had an unruly student, kind of talk about how somebody else would handle the situation, or if they have any tips on what to do next time. So I just wanted Caitlin to talk a little bit about her experience working internationally while still being a college student, which is something not a lot of people get to do.
Yeah. So my internship while abroad was at a program called the Refugee Access Program, which was just north of the River Liffey, if you know Dublin, Ireland at all. But so I left our apartments every morning, or every Wednesday. I was there for a full day on Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. school hours. And what I did there was I did some data entry in the main office around new and incoming students. And then I also had the opportunity to sit in on English classes and math classes, as well as some life skills and development classes. So all of the students at the school were either asylum seeking or refugee status kids ages 13 to 18, and all the students were looking to integrate quickly and efficiently into the Irish school system so that they could continue their education, and the school was a learning bridge, so to help them really hone in on their English and really get them up to speed, so that when they did integrate back into the Irish school system, it would be a smooth process and that they would be able to transition effectively and be really able to, what's the word I'm looking for, successfully complete their work to the best of their ability. So I loved my internship, and I really enjoyed the fact that I did get to sit at a desk sometimes and work on the computer and do some of the behind the scenes aspect, but then I was also able to sit in the classroom and form those really important relationships with the students. And on my last day, I ended up making them cupcakes because I was sad that I was leaving them, and they wrote me this beautiful card just saying thank you for all the time that I had spent with them, and I have it now still in my room. So it meant a lot to me to have that international experience, but also to take it back with me and work with the students at my school now who are also refugee status. So
awesome. So you can hear kind of how Caitlin was able to apply her internship experiences to where she is now, and how obviously it directly connects to what she's learning in classes. But hearing from some of the rest of you, how do you feel, how applicable do you feel the internships you've had in the past have been towards what you've learned in classes, kind of your career goals? I know internships kind of are supposed to bring what you're learning to life. So how do you feel like that has actually happened, and how classes really complement what you do in your internship, and you kind of need one to do the other? You really do need both to get a good, well-rounded education. You can't just be learning in the classroom and then not going out and applying it, and you can't be going out and applying it until you're experiencing it in the classroom. So if any of you guys want to kind of touch on that aspect at all.
Yeah, so as a graphic designer, when you're in the class, it's kind of hard as a first year to kind of separate yourself from your work and kind of put it up in front of the class and get a class critique and have everyone tell you the things you should change. But as you get older and then you have your first internship, you realize that like you are just the vessel to create the art. You're not like, it's not your artist, it's not your art. So to having that critique and having someone break your work down and give you all of these criticism and having to go back and fix it is how it works in the real world. So having a classroom mirror that, and having your peers and your teachers tell you, well, you should do this, and I don't know if this is working, maybe try this and try that, is what it's going to be like when you actually go out and you're actually practicing graphic design in the field. They're going to critique you, they're going to tell you that this is wrong, and it's all to make you better, and it's to make the piece better in the end. But without having that critique and kind of having me be broken of this like sensitivity with my pieces in the first couple of years, and being taught that this critique is necessary and it's going to happen in the field, and you can't have a project that goes uncritiqued. It's just going to happen. So kind of getting over that critique and getting used to that critique, and then being able to critique other people. How many times can I say critique in one sentence? Is something that like really kind of happens in the education. And I think classes and then internship kind of later on is the best way to see what it's going to be like in the field, and see that your classes are actually really preparing you for the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I came to Champlain specifically because of the upside down curriculum and the emphasis on internships and career focused that we have, which we are so fortunate to have. I credit all of my younger internships to the upside down curriculum and really getting into my public relations and marketing classes the first day of campus. And that's how I got my sophomore internship, and that's how I began to build on, and that's how I ended up snowballing to the next three. And why did I forget the question? Oh, applicable to real world. Totally spaced. But you know, without having the classes to give me those tangible skills of how to write a press release and how to do pitching and all of that within my first year, I would have never been able to feel confident enough to apply for an internship such as Mama Va and get that. And you know, like Lisa said, it goes hand in hand. And I'm a learner that needs to see like, okay, this is what I learned in the classroom. This is my textbook. Here's how it applies in my internship. And I get so excited when what I'm doing in class I can bring to my internship and be like, I just learned this, let me do this. And more often than not, your internship bosses are going to let you, and they're going to be so excited to see that you're hungry to learn and you're applying things that you are so up to date on, because as Lisa said earlier, we're a fresh perspective, we bring new ideas, and we are learning like up to date, whereas some of our bosses, you know, they're outdated on some things and they look to us to bring in that fresh perspective. So it's been amazing to see how cohesive my classes, my internships have been. 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
I say the internships really bring your education full circle. Like you can, like Dan was saying, you can pass in work like over and over and over again, but it's in the real world where you're talking to real people, you're planning a real event, like a real fundraiser, you're working with real money, sending out real press releases, you know, doing all those things. It really brings everything full circle.
Yeah. And I think another important point to make is when you're looking, whether you're on JobSpot, which is kind of how it's Champlain's network of internships and jobs in the area, or whether you're just on a company's website looking at their intern program, even though we have the upside down curriculum and you're learning a lot of new things, you might look at a job description and see like, oh yeah, I can do that. And oh yeah, I've learned that in my class, but oh, that third thing, I've never really heard of that before. It's really important that you don't get intimidated by that. Just because it's a new experience and it's something you might not have talked about before, doesn't mean that you can't do it at your internship. The internship is a total learning experience. So you're not expected to walk in the door and be able to handle every task they give you. It's just as much of a learning experience as being in the classroom is. So I think it's really important to kind of set your goals high and don't ever underestimate yourself. Definitely know that just because I don't know how to do it now doesn't mean that I can't go to that internship and rock it and be able to do it even better at my next one. Everything is a learning experience. You're always learning. So I think it's important to always set yourself high. And even if it's maybe a stretch internship where you're like, oh, usually seniors apply to this company, or usually like they don't place people. I'm a marketing major and this is a PR internship or something, vice versa, whatever it may be. Doesn't hurt to apply. It doesn't hurt to have a conversation, get a coffee with them, even go in for an interview. What's the worst that's going to happen? So I think it's really important definitely to go out there and not be afraid to be learning out in the industry, and not think that your only learning experiences is going to be in the confines of a classroom. I think is huge.
Just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think it's important to mention that Champlain doesn't just say, here's your internship, like this is where you're going to work. Granted, your teachers help you and there's people you can go to ask for things, but they don't just hand you the internship. You have to go through the internship process. You interview, you apply. Like, yes, they expect you to get it and it's part of the requirements, and will help you and they'll provide you resources, but you do it all on your own. So while getting this internship and you're still in college and you still have Champlain to kind of hold your hand a little, you're also getting that real world experience. So you're ready to apply for jobs out of college. That's the whole idea behind it.
Yeah. It's like it's a test run. Internships are a great kind of it's almost like a mini case or something like that. Like you're trying it out and maybe you have an internship and you get done with it and you're like, wow, maybe Caitlin went in with younger kids and she was like, wow, no, that's definitely not for me. That's why we have internships, so that you can try those things out and figure it out early on. And that's another thing with the upside down curriculum. If you're an early childhood education major and you're working with younger children and you go in there and you realize that you're more tempted to know about middle school, that's going to be really helpful. So you have time to kind of figure that out before it's senior year and you're in your capstone internship and you're like, what am I doing? So it's good to figure that out early on, for sure.
That's really what I used my internship to do at first, because I kind of like declared my major and my minor, and then I like looked back at it and I was like, is this really what I want to do? So I found an internship that I could run a whole event, because that's what I thought I wanted my minor to be. And then I really wanted to pick some kind of section of marketing, so I thought PR looked kind of cool. So I really dove into those two worlds. Events I really love, PR I'm not so good at. So, here I am in advertising now and I'm happier than ever. But it really helps you kind of not only figure out what you do love to do, but figure out what you don't necessarily want to do.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing to figure out.
No.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we're kind of going to start to wrap it up. So kind of as a final question, I'd like to go around the room and have everyone just kind of give one piece of advice. So whether you're a current student watching this and you're going to be taking an internship class next semester, and you want some tips on what to expect, or whether you're a prospective student and internships are a really important part about college that you're concerned about, Champlain's a great place for that. So I think if we can all go around and kind of give one, you can take a second to think about it if you need to, kind of one piece of advice that we would leave you guys with based on what we've experienced and what we think you might experience. But yeah, so
I can
start.
take a second.
Yeah.
Caitlin's ready. One piece of advice that I would definitely say is don't be afraid to mess up or to do something that you're not entirely sure is the right thing. Take that initiative, be that leader in that team that kind of goes a little bit ahead of the game and kind of offers something to the table. And if it's not receptive and if your supervisor suggests something a little different, it's good knowing that you took that risk and they might use that later on down the road. So definitely don't be afraid to shed your ideas with the team.
Hopefully that didn't steal anyone
I'm
else's.
sorry.
I kind of took mine a little, but my little piece of advice is just ask. They want your questions and they want to teach you, and half of the internship is a learning experience. So if you don't know how to do something, don't panic and be like, they expect me to know this. Just ask. They want to teach you and they don't want you to do it wrong. So don't be afraid to ask is my tidbit.
I was kind of just speaking exactly to this, but I would say, first of all, to not be afraid to dive into an internship and something that you're not so sure about, to really explore the field and figure it all out. But I will also say that Oh, what was my other point? Oh, I had another one.
We can come back to you if you want to.
Okay, yeah, come back. I had another one.
Yeah, no worries.
I would say start young. Like everyone said, don't be afraid of, perhaps your lack of experience. Don't be afraid to shed your ideas. Start young and just reach out. Like a lot of my friends now who are seniors at other schools are asking me, how do you find internships? I'm like, call a place, find a place that you like and call them, email them, ask them, reach out and tell them that you're interested. The worst they can say is we don't have an internship, but the best they can say is, yeah, come aboard to our team. And that's what I found specifically with Champlain and all of the internships that I had, and it's been amazing. I've loved every internship that I've had, and I'm better for them.
That was actually my other one. I was going to say that Champlain does a great job at posting internship listings and helping you find internships all around Burlington and even outside of Burlington. But the internship that I found for next semester that I'm really, really excited to start, I sought out that company. Thank you. Sought out that company that I really wanted to work for, and they didn't have any internship positions listed, but I took the extra step and asked them, and they happened to have something for me to do, and I was able to get that internship. So if there's something that you really want to do, an industry you really want to be in, a company you really want to work for, it really doesn't help to ask and say, hey, this is all the things I can do. What can you do for me?
Yeah. And I think just another thing to point out that I have forgotten to mention throughout this Hangout is career services is really helpful. That is our department on campus. So every division has a division-specific career advisor, at least one. So they know the industry, they know the companies in the area, they know who's previously had interns, they know who's looking for interns, they know who to contact. They are specializing in whatever area you're in, and they are so helpful. So you can go in there and they'll help you look over your resume. Start it, if you don't even have one, you can go in with a blank sheet of paper and they'll help you put your resume together. If you have an interview coming up and you want to practice, you can go in there and practice. If you need a new LinkedIn picture or you don't have a LinkedIn and you want to create that profile, you can go in there and get any career help. That is a priceless kind of thing to have on, a priceless service to have on campus, and something a lot of Champlain students really, really love. So that's a great department on campus that we have.
It doesn't end after 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
You still have that career advisor until forever.
Yeah. So
until Champlain just implodes on itself.
Yeah. So
won't happen.
So if you really connect with your career advisor and they become a mentor for you, that doesn't stop when you graduate. So don't be scared about that. You'll have that forever, which is great. And I guess my one piece of advice that I would add is don't be afraid to bring that fresh perspective. So just because you go into a business meeting and see that they do something one way doesn't mean they're not open to other options. Definitely go about it in a respectful manner and be like, that's how you guys do it. I would totally do it this way. But be like, in my class one time or in my group project, I had a professor the other day who had no idea what Google Drive was. So I was like, we go over all these questions in class. It'd be really nice if we could create an online study guide. So I created a Google Doc for the class and I showed my professor how to do it and how to create it. And I made a table and I put all the questions in and everyone in the class got to go in and put the answers with it. And then everybody used it as a study guide. And everyone came in after the test saying that they were 100 times more confident because they got to log on to the Google Drive and use that study guide that we had made in class. So don't be afraid to bring that fresh perspective and kind of break the mold of maybe what they've been previously doing, because that's why you're there. So take that extra step and take that initiative, but make sure you go about it in a respectful manner. That's very important as well. But if you go to Champlain, you will. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being on this. I'm glad I muted and hid myself because I was cracking up with you guys and not with most of the things you were saying. So thank you so much to all of you for talking about internships, and thank you to our live viewers. I saw you there. And thank you to anybody who's checking this out in the archives. Hopefully you learned a lot tonight. I know I did, and got some great advice as well. And tomorrow night we will be doing a hangout at 8:30 once again for Women in Technology. So I hope you can join us then. And as I mentioned, please feel free as always to tweet us questions at Champlain SA, Champlain Student Ambassador SA, or feel free to email us or call us as well. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you one more time to our lovely panel.
Thank you.